The French presidential election race comes to a head this week, which could have a significant impact on trading in both the euro as well as European stocks. There's a number of elections being held over the course of the next year in Europe that could end up setting the future for deciding the future for the euro as well as even possibly for the European Union itself. There's been a huge battle and a trend towards Eurosceptic forces and populist forces gaining ground in elections. Now, the first election was in the Netherlands last month, and there the status quo kind of prevailed, but that's a core Eurozone country, and change did seem to be a bit of a stretch there. However, as we move throughout the year, elections do become quite significant. The next big one up is France, where we have Marine Le Pen are out promising to take France out of the euro, and she's one of the leading candidates. We also have the German election coming up in the fall, and sometime between now and next spring, we have the big one, which is an election in Italy, where there's multiple Eurosceptic parties and a real chance that somebody could win that wants to break up or pull Italy out of the Eurozone. But for now, France is the election most in focus. There's four main candidates running at this point for two spots in the runoff election, which will be held in the early part of May. We have Macron and Le Pen both running about 23%, and then between about 18% and 20%, we have Mélenchon and Fillon. So we have four candidates, given the margins of errors, that could potentially find their way into the second round. So there's still a lot of different combinations that we could see play out over the next couple of weeks. Marine Le Pen is the most important one, as I said, because she's the leader of the Eurosceptic, of the populist forces. If she were to win, is particularly in the second round, it could really cause a lot of volatility in the markets. Currently, she's expected to get through to the second round, where she's expected to lose. That's what the market's kind of pricing in right now. If that changes, or if other candidates come to the fore, we could see quite a bit of action in the markets. So I'm going to start with the euro and euro pairs. And if we look here at euro dollar, what we'll see is that it's been generally weakening over the last year or so. The U.S. dollar has been stronger. The U.S. dollar gained a lot on President Trump's election. That's starting to back off a little bit, and we've seen the euro catch some support. But overall, it's still kind of sitting stuck in this sideways trend between the 105 round number and this Fibonacci cluster here in the 200-day average just below 106, 106.30, 108. It's up here around 108 is this cluster here, and the 200-day moving average. So we may continue to see these. A victory of by pro-euro or pro-status quo kind of forces could boost the euro. Big gains showing by people who want to upset the apple cart, particularly the Eurosceptics, could send the euro lower. The other thing we're watching for is, with all this political turmoil in Europe this year, what does that mean related to Brexit? What does that mean related to the UK? The UK is trying to leave the EU already, and the question now is, are other countries going to be preparing to follow them out the door? And what could political turmoil in Europe mean for for their negotiating stances relative to the UK? One thing we've been keeping an eye on here lately is that the euro since October has actually been trending lower against the pound. The pound had sold off last summer, but really since last fall, the pound has been gaining ground against the euro. It started to regain ground against the U.S. dollar more recently, because the U.S. dollar had that late year strength on the Trump election. But now we are generally seeing here there's a trading channel between about 84, maybe 84.50 and 88.50. We're continuing to work our way lower within that. Here we have the 50-day moving average has crossed under the 200-day. That's called a death cross, and that's technically significant as well. Plus we have the RSI under 50 and falling. So for the moment, euro is still trending lower relative to the pound. We'll see if the election results, election polls going into the first round may change this or shift this. We'll see what happens, but this is certainly a market that we could see active, not just now, but in the coming months, on the changing dynamic between the UK and the EU. We'll look also specifically at the French stock market. Not only do we have the issue of the Eurosceptics versus the pro-euro people, but also the candidates themselves represent different philosophies. We have conservatives, we have centrists, we have socialists, we have right wing. So depending on who comes out on top or who looks like it's going to come out on top, that could have an influence more specifically on the French stock market. Now, generally speaking, what we've seen is for the last year, the CAC France 40 has been trending higher, but it has and it cleared the 5,000 round number, which is encouraging, but it started to run into resistance here in this 50.50 to 51.50 area. Now, previously we've seen this happen, and it's just ended up being a pause within an uptrend. This time around, we will be looking to see, is it another rest stop, or is this a top forming? If we look down at the RSI here, we can see that RSI was in an uptrend for the since the end of January. It got overbought at the beginning of March, along with a number of other markets. It's been starting to roll down. It's broken this uptrend, telling us that momentum is turning lower and we could be in for a deeper correction. How could we, where could we go back to? Well, certainly there's this 5,000 round number here, and the 50-day moving average is at about 49.70 in a correction. The other thing we'll be watching for is trading in French stocks relative to other markets. Could France outperform or underperform based on what happens with the election results? If we look here, we can see that the pink line is the U.S., the purple line is the U.K., and this green line is Germany, and the red and green line is the French index. So generally speaking, it's been basically following the same direction of travel as other world markets for the last year. However, we have seen in the last couple of months that we've been France has been underperforming Germany. It's slightly been underperforming the UK, but it has started to outperform the US. The US is kind of leading this rollover in global stock markets. So if we get a global stock market correction, that could impact France, and then it's beyond that, how does France perform relative to other markets, and that may depend a lot on the policies of the winners. So in the coming week, and really in the coming few weeks, we could see the French election have a significant impact on trading, not just in France, not just in stocks, but also in currency markets, particularly euro pairs as well.